Yeah, and Benoit, it's so great to see you again. During COVID, I've really missed my Snowflake peeps. So hopefully,
Yeah,
one of these days we'll get back together. All right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's really important to start off with the foundation of how you emerged, how you came up to be in this industry and to be an architect and then to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, actually, I was born. I always say that I was born in data because I did my PhD in parallel, database system. So that was as you can hear from my, thick French accents. I'm French. I was born in the south of France, and I did my PhD in Paris 6 exactly. And yeah, so data. I was always in data. And very quickly after that, I moved in 96 and I joined Oracle because I wanted really to be at the center of the data revolution, which was, for me at that time, the Oracle database and all the parallel, capabilities that this database had. And there I met Thierry. Thierry is the other co-founder of Snowflake. We started, Snowflake, the two of us. We worked many years together at Oracle, and as you said, we were both architects there, so really technical profile. We wanted to build, a great product, make Oracle, the best at that time, and then we realized in 2012, basically, that Oracle was missing a revolution, actually two revolutions, I would say. One was the big data revolution, machine-generated data, large volume, and the other revolution was the cloud. And so we thought that we had, to build something different, and this is the idea of Snowflake. And therefore, in 2012, we decided, both Thierry and I, to leave Oracle and to start Snowflake.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And most people are familiar, most people in the audience here, I'm sure, are familiar with your IPO, which, has been stated was one of the biggest ever or the biggest ever. You must pinch yourself every now and then over that. It's just incredible to see. But it would be really cool to kind of, if you could get into the beginnings of the company, because I know that kind of started in one direction and then it went in another direction. So I think it'd be very instructive for the entrepreneurs here to hear how it got started and how it got oriented in the right direction.
Yeah. So as I said, in 2012, and I always say first that we never wanted really to build a startup and a company. Initially, we wanted to build a great product. Snowflake was a mean to achieve that, but it was really what we wanted to build that was the most important for us. So in 2012, as I said, big data, cloud, Oracle was missing that revolution. At the same time, at least on the big data side, there was Hadoop, right? Hadoop was going to create that revolution. And we didn't believe, both Thierry and I, we really didn't believe in Hadoop because of really the complexity that Hadoop was bringing. There was a lot of things that Hadoop didn't know how to do, in particular transactions. We are database people and transactions were not done by Hadoop. And anyway, and the other thing too is that Hadoop was really slow and as I said, complex. So this is the really the idea of Snowflake: build a better system for the cloud, and you have to see that at that time data became really at the heart of many discussions, right? Every company started to understand the power of data, and there was huge limitation with the technology. First, because people wanted to analyze more data, as I said, machine-generated data, petabyte scale of data, both web logs and business data. But there was also more users, right? It used to be that data warehouse system and analytical system were reserved for the CEOs and the C executives of a company. But in 2012, when we started, really everyone wanted to have access to this system. So this democratization of access to the data was critical. Then there was another challenge. Both because more and more users wanted to access data, it meant more and more queries against the same data, and this system became really a bottleneck. So we met, we said, we cannot really build, this revolution inside Oracle. So we decided to found Snowflake. We met, Mike Spicer. So Mike Spicer is the initial VC that helped us and really gave us, I would say, the confidence that yes, we can do that. We can build a new system outside of Oracle as a startup. So we left Oracle in 2012 in August. And we had no idea on how to do that. We knew that we wanted to leverage the cloud. We knew more or less what we wanted to do, but we didn't know how to do it. So we spent, Thierry and I, many months, I would say until the end of 2012, in my apartment. I had a small apartment on El Camino, Real in San Mateo, so in the Bay Area. And we thought about, how can we leverage the cloud to build this revolution, and what does it mean, to be, what can the cloud, bring that was not possible to do on premise, and I would say more or less, two things. One was unlimited access to resources, right? The cloud has unlimited, storage, unlimited access to compute resources. So the scale, if we can harness this power, we can solve the scale issue and more data, more users. The other aspect of the cloud is that we can bring a solution as a service. And that's what's critical to us. We really wanted this democratization of access to data. And for us, the service was really the ultimate way of doing that. So we wanted to build a solution as a service where a user would just use it and get all this power, but without really managing it, and without, doing anything than just running queries. So that was a bold vision. And the last thing I would say is that the elasticity, right? How can we leverage the elasticity of the cloud? And really for us at the time, people would say, oh, elasticity means, adding more servers to a cluster, or, potentially removing these servers and have no impact on queries. That's where people thought about elasticity. And for us, we thought this is something very different. It has to be something different. And what we wanted to do is really enable users to add new workloads around the same data, and this new workload that can be started on their own compute resources. So there was really the idea of decoupling, storage and compute, such that any workload can have a dedicated set of resources. Workload will not compete, for resources against each other. It would be really easy to start a new workload. Actually, today in Snowflake, you can do that literally in seconds. You can get, a lot of compute resources, and you can, create the same data that you have. So data and storage and compute are completely decoupled. So this idea of multi-workload support is really the key idea of Snowflake.
Yeah. And you call that the architecture, your key architecture decision.
Yeah, so that was the architecture. One thing I should have mentioned in this architecture is as I said, we wanted Snowflake to be the combination of a data warehouse system and, really fast, with this unlimited access to resources, but also to be big data. And because Hadoop was, in our mind a failure, and there was no reason to have two different systems to do, the big data and the traditional analytics. So we wanted to combine that. And that meant, from day one, supporting unstructured data. You can think of unstructured data as web logs, JSON, natively inside Snowflake, and supporting that at petabyte scale. So a lot of our IP, I would say, is also, the really fast support of that type of data.
Yeah. I think for this audience, the entrepreneurs, it's worth noting that you and Terry were able to focus on the architecture, on these big technical questions, because Mike Spicer, the VC, came in as the CEO. And he kind of took care of the business aspects of getting the thing going, while you guys just concentrated on these big architecture questions and technology questions.
It's a very, very good point. I mean, this is what I said. Thierry and I wanted to build a product and focus on the product side and build that revolution. And we were not so much interested in the business.
Yeah. Now, one of the great advantages of the architecture that you set up was that it enabled customers to pay. Oh, they only had to pay for what they used. So this was a revolution because it meant all these startups that didn't have a lot of capital necessarily, or even other companies, they could get into it. They could start using it. They could find the value in it without having to pay some huge amount for, buying all the servers, all this stuff, or even buying some big contract that would be burdensome to them.
No, this is a very good point, and it has several impacts. And as you said, the first big impact is really you pay only for what you use. It's like electricity, and when you are a startup and when you are starting, very likely you have very little use. You are developing your products, so you are not really using the analytical system to its maximum, and for sure you are not using it maybe at night or even during the weekend. So this ability to really pay only when you use it is great. The other aspect, which is even more intriguing, is that if you can, when you run a workload, and because we can parallelize it, if you can put a lot of compute resources, let's say you multiply the compute resources that you dedicate to that workload by a factor of 10. Yeah. So this workload, because we know how to parallelize, will run 10 times faster. But at the same time, because you are done 10 times faster, you can shut down the compute resources that you dedicated for that workload. So you go 10 times faster, but you pay the same price. And that is also the magic of elasticity. If you can, be really elastic in seconds, you can do that. You can really run things faster and pay the same price. Yeah. So that's the other advantage.
That's a great point. Now, another point for this audience of entrepreneurs, in those very early days, did you make any significant mistakes that you then had to correct? I mean, it'd be instructional, I think, to talk through maybe one example of that and how you recovered.
So I would not think that we did a big mistake and that we had to recover, but we learned a lot of lessons doing that. And in particular, that building a service and a world, scale service, which is always on, and it's very different than on-premise software. And we learn a lot of lessons there. You don't become the Google of the world in 5 minutes. So it was a lot of lesson learned. How to manage the service, how to automate everything. You don't want to have any human being, to repair things, to fix things, to upgrade, to do all these things. It has to be completely online. So it has a profound impact. Building a service, I believe, has a profound impact, not only on the software, but also how you do, all the release management, the QA. So it has, impact everywhere. And we kind of underestimated maybe, the difficulty of that. We were focusing on running fast and database, kind of problems. Yeah. The other, if mistake or lesson learned is the team. Building the right team and getting the right people is critical. And in a startup, that's probably the most important aspect. How you sell your vision, the vision of Snowflake initially. We were two. We had French, thick French accents, as I said. Yes, so it was really difficult to convince. How you convince someone, and if you cannot convince someone, it's probably that you don't have a great idea. Yeah. So learning that and learning to be confident and is a great skill probably.
Yeah. I think you made some very brave decisions early on. The decision not to go on-prem, a lot of those big corporations wanted to see that, and you just said, no, this is a superior model, we're going to go with this. And once you released the product, it took off fast. I mean, you got a lot of small companies, you got a lot of large companies. I want to kind of fast forward now to the last couple of years, because a very significant thing happened. I mean, you had an initial vision of something and you executed on it, and it was desired. It had lots of demand in the marketplace. But then you came up with a new vision, a bigger vision, the vision of the data cloud. And I think, people throw terms around. I think it'd be very helpful if you could define what does Snowflake mean when you talk about the data cloud, and why is it so powerful?
Yes. So the way to define the data cloud is first, it's a cloud, right? And it's a cloud, which is, so we are a new cloud. Oftentimes I say we are maybe the fourth, cloud vendor, in a sense that we are, building cloud regions. But our cloud is really dedicated to data and data analytics and applications that run on top of this data. And we don't build the infrastructure. We are not interested in being the Amazon and building EC2s and storage. So we rely on the existing cloud provider to build our own regions, and our cloud is one single platform which is composed of many regions. These regions are running all over the world. We started in the US, obviously. That was our first region, but then we expanded to Europe. We went in Canada, Asia, Australia. So we have, as of today, we have 22 regions in our cloud, and these regions are all interconnected together. So when I say it's one single system, that's the way we want to think about it. As a customer of Snowflake, you could use more than one region at the same time. You could move data from one region to the other. You can even, these regions are multi-cloud, right? We started with the AWS cloud and we moved to Azure, seconds, and now we are in the Google cloud. So some of our regions are GCP, some of our regions are Azure, and some are AWS. Of course, since we started with AWS, we have more AWS regions, but our vision is really for the data cloud to build this cloud platform, data cloud platform, which is one single system for the world. And that's very important. And I will explain why later. The second aspect is workloads. Of course, now that we build a data cloud, we want to expand beyond our initial workloads, which were really the combinations of big data and data warehouse in one single system. So we are moving to data engineering, which is, massaging data and doing all the transformation of the data inside the platform. We are moving also to data science, and to move this workload, we have to run natively, Java programs. So programming, data programmability inside the platform is critical for us. And also we make this platform really easy to use for applications, and that this is very relevant to startup, of course, because they are building, application on top of our data cloud. So that's one vision is the platform and the capability of the platform, and the fact that this platform is global. The other vision, the other dimension of the cloud is the collaboration, and that's why single platform is so critical. When you are part of the data cloud, you are part of the same ecosystem, and you can, collaborate, and you can collaborate within your big enterprise, but you can collaborate between different companies by exchanging data. So we have this capability of sharing data, and think of data sharing as the Google Doc of data, right? Today you not imagine using, documents without sharing them with potentially anyone. And it's the same that what we did with data, because we have one single cloud. You can share data with anyone, and we have even a marketplace, which is the final vision. So this collaboration is critical.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. When I think about it, there are waves of innovation in the cloud, and really the first one was computation and storage, but then data is in a sense an even more valuable wave and a bigger wave, because when you think about all the data of the world, that's going to be used, migrating to the cloud, where it could be better managed, integrated, shared, as you said, analyzed, all those kinds of things. It seems like this is a big moment in computing history, and you guys have a key platform that's right there. And I think your vision is that you're going to keep adding more and more capabilities to the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, this is the realization that the cloud is such a different environment, such a opens so many possibilities. And this is not only for Snowflake. I really believe that any startup should consider building a service. Now, on software premise is passé, I would say. It will still exist, but the world is moving to the cloud and is moving to software as a service, with this consumption model even, and this collaboration, right? Because now we are all running in the same data center, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk some more about the opportunity for startups, for technology companies that want to build new capabilities, new services, those kinds of things. What are the services that you make available to them so that they can build on your platform? And what are the opportunities for them? And maybe who are some of the players that are already there having great successes?
Yeah, so one interesting way. So first, the value proposition is every modern application should have data at its center and should be somewhere data application, and data should be used by this application to do many things. And the way we relate to that is that we are a data application. Snowflake is a data application. We are we were a startup ourselves, and we can see how we use Snowflake, and we are one of the biggest customers of Snowflake, obviously, and we use it for many things, right? First, we use it to support our products. All our web logs, every log that we generate, is immediately ingested in Snowflake, and every support, every troubleshooting that we do is done, on top of this data, and this is semi-structured data. We generate literally many terabytes of this log data and service data, and we use it to support our system. That's number one. Number two is what I call product intelligence. You need to use analytics to improve your product, and we do that constantly. And we have all these metrics, not only the logs, but all the interaction that users have with our system. Every query which is executed, we know about it, and we use that data to improve and to refine and to know where the product is not not optimal. The other thing is beyond improving customer experience, we also use it, to do the billing, the security. So all the security, a big trend is centralizing all the data for security and manage security inside, so we manage security inside Snowflake, and we use a lot of data sources, both internal and external, actually, to do that, but all going to Snowflake. The billing also of Snowflake is done, that way. And the last aspect is we collect a lot of data about our customers, obviously, and our customers want to see this data. And we use data sharing, this capability of exchanging data between, tenants of the system, to share all usage that this customer have on top of Snowflake. Every query that they run, every interaction that they have, we share that data back to them. We call it account usage information. So that's, another way to use that. So this gives you an idea of what you can do with the platform. And I think for a startup, and we, I saw many startups that moved to Snowflake. And the reason they had to move to Snowflake is that they grew, right? When they started, they were small. They could use Postgres, they could use MySQL, they could use, a small system. But as their service, grew, these systems, this underlying, platform was not scaling, and they had to manage it. And they had to spend all their time actually managing the infrastructure versus really focusing on their added value, on their, application. And that's also a reason why Snowflake system, which is fully managed, is great, because it has unlimited scalability because it leverages the cloud. So you can point to it and you don't need really to think about that. And as I say, we are multi-cloud. So if you build services and you want your service to exist on top of many cloud, you can find Snowflake in every of this cloud.
Yeah. And I've seen you, you have a wonderful roster of startups who are your partners and build on your system. Instacart, Blackboard, Braze,
Yeah.
PDX, some of these others, really some of the brightest and fastest growing and smartest outfits around. One thing I think that it's important to know about your data cloud is this whole idea that we haven't talked about it yet of data network effects. It's like people used to talk about network effects from just the internet and from the social networks and stuff like that. But data network effects, the more data, the more people who are using the data, and the more data that's out there and that can be shared, it's just this force expander for everybody involved. If you could kind of talk about how you see that benefiting startups, I think that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, so this data network, really our vision is, I say it often, is to build a world wide web of data, and the connection through data. And it's not only data, actually, it's also all the services that revolves around data. How you can deliver a service as a startup, as a company in general, and leverage that service, put it potentially on the marketplace, and have other tenants of the platform use that service. So as a startup, first you can use all these data sets. As I said, we have this marketplace. We have hundreds of providers of very good data sets that you can quickly leverage, and a few of them, few example of these data sets are, for example, in the domain of security. I talked about security that we leverage. We do all the security in Snowflake, and we get a lot of data about that from external users that are sharing it back to us. So that's one model. You have also startups that can instrument your website and record every click that users are doing and share that data back to you via the marketplace. So this capability and this access to data, and not only data that you produce but outside data, is critical. And it's
I think it would also be helpful if you'd mention some of the ways that Snowflake supports entrepreneurs. Like you have Snowflake for startups, you got the ventures, you got the startup challenge. I think these guys would love to hear about those things.
Yeah, we have many programs. I mean, the first program that we have is the Snowflake for Startups program, as you mentioned, and the idea is that it provides the resources that startup needs to build this data intensive application and products, and we help them in terms of credits. First, we give free credits to use Snowflake, and we give them architectural design consultation, the co-marketing opportunity using the Snowflake brand, and that helps to build faster and reach more customers. Then we have what we call Snowflake Ventures, and this is more targeted to growth stage companies, and we want to help companies which are really helping us to build this ecosystem around data and build the marketplace, but beyond, and so expand basically the message of the data cloud and the breadth of the data cloud. And the last aspect is really to help early stage startup. You just start, and we have this Snowflake Startup Challenge, and we give you so it's a challenge. You can compete. You can go to snowflake.com Startup Challenge, and to participate and see the conditions. But basically, if you win, you get $250,000, I think, to get. So we are trying to do many things to help.
Yeah. Now, earlier, you briefly mentioned data sharing, and you talked about the marketplace, which are really significant pieces of what Snowflake offers. Could you start by explaining what is it about your architecture that makes sharing so easy, either within a company or between companies or between data providers and data users? And and then go into the data marketplace. What is that? How does that work? And how could the people listening to this Zoom, how could they benefit from it?
Yeah, as I said, it's kind of magic at a level. I mean, when you use it, it's really like the Google Doc. You send a link to your data, and these data can be mounted in another account and directly accessed, and you can run, so the provider has data, decide what data he wants to share, potentially share it directly with the consumer, or put it in a marketplace for any Snowflake customers to leverage these data sets. And because this is possible because of our what we call architecture, basically, which decouples compute and storage. As I said, you can run different workload against the same data. And we leverage that, for data sharing. So different workload is not only your workload, but it can be workload from another customer. So it doesn't use, you share data, but you don't share compute resources, right? They are completely separated. It's just a link on the data. And what is magic is when you are consuming data, what happens is that when the provider updates its data, right, and there is this ETL process to maintain that data, as a consumer, you immediately see the changes. It's completely, consistent with what the provider sees. So it's live data. It's really live. It's secure because there is no copy. It stays in the platform.
That's right.
The provider controls it, right? It can remove the access to its data. So that's the underlying, technology that makes it possible. Now this works exactly like I said, within a Snowflake region. Now, to share data across region and cross cloud, you can use our replication system to move this data, move your data and share it, in different region, potentially different, region geographically. You can share data from US to Europe, or you can share it cross cloud and or both. So we have these providers. A good example of one of the providers is a provider that provides COVID data to all our customers. We have, thousands of our customers using this live COVID data to try to understand, and they use it as if it was their data. And that data is provided by the Star Schema, company, which distributes it all over the world.
And that's on your data marketplace, correct?
Yeah, it is on our data marketplace. So we have, I can give you a few examples. We have another company named Compile, so it's healthcare. So they collect a lot of data from different sources. They aggregate this data. It's related to health data, pharmacy, patients, and they share it back with their customer. So as a customer, you don't need to worry about maintaining that data and collecting that data. We have EAP, which is another of our customer, which, as I said, instruments can instrument your application, and they collect, data, click events, and any interaction with the application. They collect your data and they share it back with you, and you can directly, combine that data they collected with your data. So that's an example of how they monetize this capability. And there is a lot of things also around security and security data.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, I want to ask you to put on your visionary cap for a minute here, or actually, if you would, what do you see coming like in the next year, and then what are the big things coming in the data space in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's really, we are really at the start of our vision. I described the World Wide Web of data, and this connection and the power that has. And when the World Wide Web started, no one could guess what will happen. So we are just at the beginning of this journey. Even if we have, as I said, many hundreds of providers of data in the marketplace, we don't really know how it goes. But I'm convinced, though, that by removing data silos, right? You have no more silos between data. You can connect any data in the world with any other data in the world as long as it exists in our data cloud. And you can not only connect data, but you connect these services, these applications. So this ecosystem, it will be amazing what you can do in terms of research. Think about experiments and even when you look at the COVID crisis and the vaccine distribution, and you need to connect data with different organizations, right? Governments, like who is delivering Pfizer, delivering the vaccine and supply chain, and so that's data is going to be at the center of many efforts, and I really love to see how it goes, and I don't know, and I think that's we will see.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting time. Hey, we're gonna have a commercial break now. I can't resist plugging the book Rise of the Data Cloud. And this is a book, Frank Slootman and I wrote this together, but it was with a tremendous amount of help from Benoit, Terry, and many others. About half of the book is the story of Snowflake's journey, and the second half, it goes industry by industry and these major themes that we've talked about today, practical uses of the technology. So it's really a utilitarian book, and I think some of the people watching today might find it really useful.
I bought a version of it on Amazon, I think. So.
Oh yeah, very good. Oh, they didn't give you one, huh? They gave me 2 copies, so
Okay, I didn't get my copy because of
I was,
COVID and.
oh, I see. I see.
You need to send me a copy, Steve.
Yeah, all right. Hey, now we have just a few minutes left, but I wanted to get back into the startup thing again a little bit. You were in the startup mode, 6 years ago. It's changed dramatically, but kind of what was the key piece of advice you could give these people today who are in the startup mode that's going to help them become more successful?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to give advice personally, but I would say customer focus is probably very important. If you are building a product, you want your customer to love that product. So knowing how to listen to your customers and really thinking about how to transform their life. If you can transform the life of someone, and this is really what is happening with Snowflake. I mean, literally, we transformed, the life of many people and many companies. And that's a great feeling. And that's, is a sure, recipe for success. I think the other, piece of advice is that you never realize, but it's a huge commitment. Building, starting a startup and having people, go with you and you convince, your employees and the team, building the team. You have to do that in the long term. You have to have a long-term position on that. It's a huge engagement. I always compare that as having kids, right? You don't have kids and then you walk away. You have to focus and you have to put a big chunk of your life into that adventure. If you are not ready to do that, I don't think you should do a startup. So that's probably the biggest personal advice if you want. You have to be super optimistic. I think you will have a lot of deceptions, and we had some deceptions and some issues. And you have to stay optimistic, and you really have to have a North Star. You said, we never compromise. A lot of companies at some point wanted us to go back on premise. Why don't you build Snowflake on premise? And I will give you a lot of money if you can do that. We knew that our North Star was the cloud, and we never lost sight of that. And it's very important not to try to do everything and have strong belief. And then the last thing is the team. I mean, the team is so important. Building bringing the right people with you. I mean, Snowflake would never exist, if it was only for Thierry and I. I mean, we are insignificant, I would say, at that point. Really, the team is what made Snowflake, and hiring the right people, the people that you can work with, is super important. That they share your value, they share your passion, and I think that's the biggest message I would say is bring the right people with you and this adventure, and never compromise on that, especially at the beginning, but even now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, the other thing I think is an important point is, companies start off with that focus on customers, like you said, laser focus. Sometimes over time with success, there's kind of like, oh, well, now we're going to focus on maximizing profits and we have leverage. We'll use the leverage against our customers. And as a tech journalist, I've seen that again and again in companies. So my sense is that Snowflake is still an intensely customer focused company, and that you plan on staying that way. Right?
Absolutely. You are telling me, Steve, that we should not become Oracle, and I fully agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And that's, customer focus. It's even more important, frankly, to us, because we are service, because we are really literally living the life of our customers and supporting them, day after day. So I think it's even more critical when you are building these services, software as a service. But yes, you're very right. You should not lose track of that. And we, oftentimes do things which are good for our customers that you could, argue are bad for us. When we optimize, when we make optimizations to our system, we run faster, but that means we consume less resources. And as I said, we pay by compute resources. So when someone uses less resources, somewhere we lose money, you can say. But what happens immediately is that customers are more happy and they consume more. So at the end, it's always a win-win, even though it's not necessarily obvious when you start.
That's great. That's a good way to close it. Thank you so much, Benoit.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Great talking to you.